Probably the thing I'm most passionate about, and where I've already told many people that I plan to spend the last portion of my career, is in providing safe, clean water for people, for the world, really.
Okay.
And I discovered a technology about 8 years ago called atmospheric water generation. It's been around for 20, 25 years. There's multiple people that claim to be the inventor of it. I have no idea who the real one is, but the technology is evolving over time. And I invested in a company that still, unfortunately, seems to be in a perpetual research mode, and chose to go around that investment because I got tired of waiting for them to turn a dollar, and became a distributor for one company and started a small business here in Texas with my son and two of his business partners, and eventually purchased a big majority ownership in the company in manufacturing, and it's a company called Tsunami Products.
Hello, Mr. Peters. Hey, Dakota. This is our Dakota and I's third podcast together.
Right.
Last time we did a podcast with Chance, and then I said, hey, we need to have Mr. Peters, one of my business mentors, on, who's coached me through the years.
We're
And
switching mentors.
switching mentors today.
Perfect. I like it.
Okay, so we're gonna listen to Mr. Peters' story today and hear what he has to say and kind of get some business acumen out of him. Maybe we can get a little better ourselves from it.
Awesome. I can dig it.
Yeah, Mr. Peters, take
Happy
us
to
away,
be
man.
here.
Happy to be here. So take us away. Where do we start?
Well, we can start how I met you, I
Okay.
suppose, maybe.
Yeah.
You were what, about 12 or 13 years old, maybe?
12 or 13.
Met at church.
Right at church.
You and my oldest son, Paul, became fast friends.
Mm-hmm.
And what was that, about 20 something years ago? And so I've watched you grow up and become a hardworking young man that's now a outstanding growing businessman. And I'm really, really proud to be a witness to all of that. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And just being able to share some of my experiences with you, more or less the things to do and the things not to do, has been a blessing for me because you've listened,
Yeah.
and for the most part you've followed my recommendations, and that's really good. So if you could get all kids to listen to their parents the way Stefan listens to me, there'd be far fewer headaches and heartaches.
I absolutely love these conversations that guys our age have with our mentors, and they always say we listen for the most part. That's always fun. Like I said, I've the mentors I've had over the years, and like I said, I stay in touch with them. It's funny how they never say we listen all the time, right? It's always the most of the time. So
Yeah.
I can appreciate that comment. So
And yeah, and I will say, and I will say that just until those few years ago, I did not want to listen to anybody's advice. And then I finally understood in life, like, you should probably listen to the guys that have done it before. And it'll help you just not have to go down a lot of these paths that they already did. And
Right.
now that I did do it, I now see of how far ahead you can actually, if you just listen, you'll actually skip a few heartaches on the road,
Right.
And so yeah.
absolutely, I know that it's one of those things that when we're young, we're full of piss and vinegar, for lack of a better term, and with age, we tend to listen a little more. You know what I mean? We worship at the altar of I as young men, right?
Yeah.
This guy did it, I can do it better. Well, probably do a lot better listening to the guy that's already done it. As you mentioned, it would definitely cut some of that learning curve and heartache out for sure. I know that's been my experience, and I'm sure that you can comment on that, being a young man that found his way just as
Oh yeah.
me and Stephen are out here trying to find ours. So, like I said, I've definitely noticed that with age. So,
And I learned, I'm the younger of two boys in my family, and I watched my older brother make mistake after mistake and get punished for it, literally and figuratively. And I can remember as a 7, 8 year old kid going, I'm not going to do that, because I just watched my brother do something that ended up with a belt on his butt. Yeah. And he's like, note to self, don't do that. And so if you take that childhood experience and translate it to real world life as an adult, there's a lot of wisdom that can be applied there. So yeah, but nobody's perfect, even those that are trying to follow all the advice that they're given, because the world's dynamic. There's always trips and traps and temptations out there to, in the case of business, to go faster, stretch harder, take a little more risk than you should. And I can speak from experience because I'm probably the biggest risk taker I know. And all my partners look at me like I'm crazy about half the time. And I have quite a few partners. And, but I have good checks and balances. My CFO partner is the anchor that slows me down. And I'm the lead dog, you might say, of the mush team that pulls the sled harder and faster. And, you, Stefan, are doing just the same thing. And so I see you and me, and I also recognize my faults and shortcomings by being too aggressive. And that's why you hear me when we have our breakfast talks to dial it back a notch or two. Just don't go quite so fast, so far, so soon, and run the risk of running off the edge a little bit. So, and then I'm talking about primarily decisions that affect your financial profile, and your financial risk. And you know what I'm talking about, right? So, and I've learned all that from trial and error. I'm an engineer by education, had zero training in finances in school, but learned it. Fortunately, was given good opportunity after negative opportunity. Got out of college in 1984 with a degree in petroleum engineering.
Where's school?
UT Austin.
UT Austin.
Hook 'em
Okay.
for all my Aggie listeners out there.
No comment.
Yeah, all my Aggie buddies are really upset with us Longhorns now that we've joined their little conference.
Yeah.
Push them off into a dark corner. They got to go find a new place to recruit now. Maybe Canada,
Oh man.
maybe Europe. Who knows? Texas is ours, baby.
It's gonna turn into the Pat McAfee show. Better get me woke up.
Go ahead.
But anyway, got out of school, went to work for Schlumberger, and after a year was laid off with about half the rest of the workforce in 1985. Found myself working as a young engineer for a new startup at age 23. By age 26, I was the engineering manager, which is kind of a heady title for a really small company, 6 or 7 employees. But what I learned by being given so much responsibility so young is it stretched me in all kinds of ways. I had to learn how to be a salesman, a sales manager, an operations guy, an operations manager, an instructor, trainer, engineer, designer. Had to take care of all the patents we had. I did everything in the company you could possibly do except the finances. And I was real close to that guy. And so by the time I left taking a paycheck for a living at age 34, I knew how to run a business, except the finances part, but I understood the principles. So as I started working for myself in sales and technical sales and doing consulting engineering, I started learning and stretching and making mistakes along the way in the financial side, but slowly grew. Fortunately, I had some personal training from a guy named Larry Burkett, who wrote Christian Financial Concepts, basically personal financial management. When I got married, my best friend and best man gave me this book for my wife and I to learn. So we we built our personal financial model off of Larry's training. Larry is kind of the predecessor to Dave Ramsey, the Dave Ramsey of the 80s, 70s and 80s. And Larry went on to be with the Lord in, gosh, probably the late 90s. I don't really remember. But by then, we had fully established ourselves in following that method of budgeting and financial planning, which has been a huge, huge benefit for us. So I tried to apply that to my business, and it usually worked. Sometimes I would fail and fumble, but trial and error, it's gotten better all the time. So, and so when I speak to you about financial planning and risk management on your business, a lot of it starts way back there.
Way back. Yeah, way back there in the 80s. Okay.
Yeah. So anyhow.
And then, so age 34, you at UT Austin, then Schlumberger,
Well, no, well, right out of college was 22. when I
22,
worked for
right?
Schlumberger, yeah. So
Yeah.
then I worked for this little company that's now based out of Canada called Penetrators Canada. They have a special hydraulic perforating tool that I helped develop and design and patent.
Oh, cool. So you worked in Canada.
I did work in Canada. I lived here in Midland, but I spent a lot of time in Red Deer, Alberta,
Okay.
halfway between Calgary and Edmonton. Cold country in the wintertime, spectacularly beautiful. They tried to move me there for about 2 years, but my wife is a beach girl, warm weather girl, grew up in Arizona part of her life. And the idea of facing minus 30 to go to the grocery store was just a little too much for her to consider. So I commuted back and forth a lot. There's nothing like walking out of your motel room that's a nice balmy 68 degrees and getting hit with minus 30 in about 2 steps.
Yeah.
And everything on your face, including your nostrils, freezes like that. And it's breathtaking, literally.
Yeah.
But I spent a lot of time there in the early and middle 90s working with my good friends at Penetrators Canada and helped them develop the tools and the technology further before I left and started my own business development. So, but yeah, Canada was gorgeous, full of snowmobiling up in the Rocky Mountains. And the summer times, these guys were all jet boaters. We'd go jet boating up those
Yeah.
rivers around, oh gosh, I'm forgetting all the names of the towns now. Rocky Mountain House out that way,
Yeah.
northwest of Red Deer. Beautiful, beautiful country. A lot of good fishing.
Okay.
Spectacular. I mean, Alberta's like Texas, only with snow.
With snow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Colder.
Right. I can testify to that. As we were speaking before the show started, I spent some time in Calgary in 2003, and it was an experience for sure. And it's very, very beautiful country when it's beautiful. I think they've got like their 4 seasons are like winter, June, July, and August. I think.
Yeah.
So
That's it. That's
yeah,
all right.
That's what I figured. So, yeah, but no, like I said, I've spent some time up there for sure, and it was actually been up there twice and spent a fair amount of time. Once 2003, and then I was working for a company out of Level Land, Texas. We went up there for the big oil and gas show.
Oh, yeah.
There in Calgary.
Yep. That's it.
And,
I've worked that show a couple of times.
Yes, yeah, that was around 2013, 14, right around in there. Like I said, it was definitely a beautiful country. I love the people up there. The people were
nice.
Yeah, the people were super nice. I just really wasn't expecting that. Being from deep East Texas, where I'm from, you get used to that Southern hospitality. And like I said, our Canadian friends to the north, they were not what I was expecting for sure. So that was
Well, Canada's just like the U.S. You go from one province to the next, and the type of people changes a little bit. The culture's very dramatically.
sure.
One province.
Sure.
Big European influence there still.
Yeah.
And so Alberta's mostly English, Scottish, and Ukrainian, interestingly enough.
Really?
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
A
man.
lot of Ukrainian descendants that have settled in Alberta.
That's crazy.
Yeah. They have 1,000 different kinds of sausage. You'll find it in their grocery stores. It's hilarious.
That's wild.
Yeah. My coldest day on earth so far was in Red Earth, Alberta, which is about 150 miles north of Edmonton. And these crazy Canadians work in the oil field all winter long. We showed up on location one morning and it started at minus 43. And these guys were working. They just said, yeah, it's a sunny day. There was no wind, thank God, or we would have all died.
Yeah.
And this Texan was terrified. And we went through a river valley, and I could feel the heater was on full blast, Canadian pickup with a big heater coil. And you could feel the temperature dropping inside the truck as we just drove through that river valley, came out the other side. We got out on location about 2 miles off the lease road, or off the highway onto the lease road, and the truck just died. And the Canadian I was with immediately called the company man and said, hey, our truck just died. We're about 2 miles from location. He said, I'll be right there. And between the time he hung up that phone and that guy arrived, the temperature in our truck just went away, just dropped. I don't know where it went to, but it was cold. He said, come get in the truck. First thing the company man asked my partner, the Canadian, he says, you got a spare alternator? He's like, no, I don't have a spare alternator. He says, well, you got to come up. You can't go around this country without a spare alternator. He said, the cold killed your alternator. I'll bet you $1.
No kidding. Yeah.
And so he radioed back to town. The truck was coming our way, brought him a fresh alternator for his Chevy pickup. And that's what it was. The cold just killed it. I don't know how or why, but it was just extreme conditions.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we worked all day out there. The high that day was -30, the high.
The high.
And it was beautiful, sunny, still day. And 2.5, 3 feet of snow on the ground. And we were working on an oil well. It was nuts.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, I'm out. I'm out. I'm out. I'm out.
I was scared the whole day. I stayed about 90% of the day I was in the truck.
Yeah, I'm out on that for sure. So,
After how long did you work in Canada? And then
Well,
what
I
did you do
never
after that?
lived there. I just commuted back and forth. I go up for 2 weeks, 3 weeks at a time,
Yeah.
come home. But I did that from about 1990 until I left the company in 96.
And you were starting your business consulting while you were
At the
there.
end of that,
At the end of that. Oh,
it, yeah. They kept me on a retainer for a while to help them. They hired 2 young guys to take my place, and I helped train them on the design work we were doing and all of that. So then I started selling pipe. My dad was in the pipe business in Houston. I sold pipe for him for a few years, and then started my own inventory company in the pipe business. And that's grown to be Tarpon Pipe and Supply, which we still operate today. It's not, here we are in 2025. We hit our peak in Tarpon between 08 and 16. And after that, our sales force started to dwindle off as I started focusing on a lot of other businesses. I started an operating company, Five Stones Energy, in 2008, and it's still operating today, all Permian Basin stuff. And then in 2009, started a company which is now today called LATAM Forest Trading. I'm building a biomass wood pellet mill in Rio Grande do Sul, Brazil right now. And a wood pellet in the biomass world is used as a heating fuel or an energy fuel. And what we're doing is we're taking the waste material from sawmills in Brazil, and these are sawmills that are producing exclusively pine lumber. Pine in Brazil is imported from the U.S. It's not native. So if you see pine trees, they're only in a plantation forest.
yeah.
So it's renewable, sustainable forestry. They're growing these big trees to turn them into lumber, which they mostly export. Brazil is a huge exporter of lumber. And we're buying their waste product. We're buying the chips from the rounded edges of the tree, the log, that are then chipped up. And then we buy the sawdust every time they make a cut on a board. So that's our feedstock. We're taking that, we're burning part of it in a power plant to produce our own energy, our own electricity and heat that we need for the pellet manufacturing process for drying the biomass. And the rest of it is the feedstock that makes the pellet. And out the other end of our automated plant, we have already bagged and palletized pallets, 1-ton pallets of wood pellets in 15 kilogram or 33-pound bags that are then shipped by container to European ports where our clients are distributors of pellets for the European heating market. Wood pellets are the low-cost leader of heating pellets in Europe, in all of Europe, about half the cost of natural gas in most countries, because natural gas primarily comes from either the North Sea, from Russia, and some comes from Romania. By the time it transports, you can imagine pipelining gas from that far away to somewhere like Italy or France, it's expensive. And so we can deliver a wood pellet in there to a consumer for about half the cost per BTU as natural gas. And so that's why it's low cost leader. So that business I started back in the day when I was starting to study renewable energy technologies as a diversification of basically my investments, but it's now become another business opportunity. So that's going on simultaneous with Five Stones and Tarpon and a number of other businesses.
Yeah.
You're familiar with.
I'm familiar. Yeah.
Right.
No, we got to talk about them all. Yeah. So I think people that would listen would know about Menard and Bowie's because it was the only one.
Yeah.
It was the only one in Menard.
Well, there's other fuel stations. So I have a property in Menard County, Texas, and it's where my family loves to congregate. Beautiful little place in the hill country. And so I became friends with several people in Menard, and one was the local pastor of the Cowboy Church, and he and I became great friends because we'd attend church with him when we were there. And he's a businessman, entrepreneur like I am, but he's also in construction. So we got an idea, we bought some land, and we stared at the land for about a year going, what are we going to build? And we finally decided to build a convenience store. So we named it Bowie's after the Texas hero Jim Bowie from the Alamo. Because Jim, in his young rambunctious days before he fought at the Alamo, was kind of an adventure seeker, treasure hunter. He came to Menard County because he knew and heard of the legends or stories of Spanish silver that had been a silver mine had been discovered and coins had been stashed hidden somewhere in Menard County, and he thought he and his brother and some other guys could find it. So it's known history that he spent some time in our county. So it's kind of a local hero, and so we named our store after him, and it was a great hit. The store just blew up almost immediately and became a great hit. We've since sold it.
Yeah. So you started it. Yeah. When did you start it, and when did it end?
We went under construction in 2018, opened in 2019, and sold it in 2024, about 5 years later.
5 years ago.
And it did extremely well. The buyer paid us a very high multiple of EBITDA, and so it was a very good investment. And we built another one up in Tuscola, Texas, that we still own today, and it's a bigger, better, more beautiful store than even the one we built in Menard. And so we call that Bowie's also, and has a cool logo out front of a big Bowie knife on the
Yeah.
storefront.
There you go. I think it's super cool that like you take somebody that's in West Texas and they're in the timber business in some capacity. Kind of goes back to one of our previous guests was in the timber business in timber country, and it ended up in the desert in the oil field.
And
Kind of like you guys
That's
did.
funny.
You guys did a switch.
the switch.
Yeah,
there.
so I have I grew up in big timber country, deep
Yeah.
East Texas, Piney Woods.
Yeah.
Like I
What
said,
town?
Center.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay, well you probably know some of the people there that I know that are in the timber business. Got some friends that have been in that pellet business
Yeah.
around it indirectly.
The only time I've been in the timber business, which is really technically not the timber
Right.
business, it's in Brazil. So
Yep.
no, I
No,
don't know.
okay,
Yeah,
okay. Yeah, like I said, the only reason I say that is those guys were doing. I don't know their whole story by any means, but they were in that pellet business in some capacity.
Sure.
For the same type
reason.
market. Yeah. They
Right.
were, for the heating market, it wasn't like, when people hear wood pellets, everybody thinks Traeger, right?
Yeah. The
It's-
trade.
it's-
Yeah.
You don't want to cook with.
Yeah, you don't want to cook with pine. So they were in that business in some capacity. Whether or not they still are, I'm not sure. But I know at one point they were shipping fuel overseas on these
Overseas,
giant
yeah.
barges.
So now there is another market in Europe. About half goes to heating pellets, and the other half is called an industrial pellet, and they're using it in power plants, replacing coal.
I think that's what they
No
were doing
kidding.
because they were shipping theirs on giant barges. They weren't doing
Yeah,
individual
that's
packaging.
probably an industrial
Okay.
pellet.
All right.
And so
Yeah. That makes sense.
European countries are incentivizing power plants to convert from coal, which is non-renewable,
Right.
of course, and to wood pellets, which is renewable, sustainable, and carbon neutral. There's a lot of arguments within the renewable energy industry about whether biomass is truly carbon neutral or not, but the theory goes to the carbon cycle of wood. So you grow a tree. Everybody knows that a tree consumes carbon, CO2, right? Then you cut the tree down. You take the wood waste, you turn it into a pellet, you ship it to a plant, they burn it, and that emits CO2. But then the tree that's replacing the one that was just burned consumes that CO2. Now, granted, they're not necessarily in the same place, but if you look at the
Right.
carbon cycle
Mhm.
on a worldwide basis, then it equates. Okay. It might not be exactly one for one because you also have carbon being generated to move that pellet from the forest to its burning point.
Right.
So
Right.
there's-
Yeah.
And to be certified renewable sustainable producer in Brazil that the European market will give us certification on, we have to show them our entire carbon footprint from the forest to our plant, to the ship, to the port in Europe, to the consumer.
Holy smoke.
We have to do a detailed analysis for that. And that's all just part of doing business in Europe,
Sure.
which is fine. We already have done that. So
It's a safe assumption for the way that I think I'm pretty simple in my thought process. I use the KISS method a lot of times. And you would think, it's a safe assumption that the carbon footprint would be near zero. I don't think it's perfect. I don't think we could prove that it was perfect, but you would think you consume one while growing one, that it consumes the offset. Would
right. Well, when
Would-
you're talking about the tree and the pellet,
Yeah.
that's
Yes.
pretty equal. But
Yes.
it's really the solar and the wind guys who are competing for market share against biomass. They're saying, but you have all these other steps between, which is true, but so do they, right?
Yeah.
How do you get a wind turbine made? And then how do you get,
Yeah.
you ever seen a wind turbine going down the highway?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Holy
That's
cow.
a lot of
I've got some friends of mine that haul them for a living. So yeah, it's
Wow. There's a lot of carbon
Yeah.
footprint going on there. So
yeah. And let me ask you this, being you brought up the solar thing, something I've seen circulating on the news that I listen to, which isn't mainstream news by any stretch of the imagination, that the fiberglass fibers that are impacting the environment around the wind
The
farms.
term
Yeah,
farms, yeah.
yeah, around
They're
these
being
places.
emitted every time they rotate.
Yes,
Right.
yes,
Right.
they're losing these fibers, and it's
Yeah.
affecting the wildlife. It's affecting the crops around these,
Really.
around these
I did
solar,
not know that.
yeah,
It
or
makes
around
perfect
the wind
sense.
farms. And like I said, whether or not, and again, this is something I'll probably get crucified over in the
No,
comments, and I'm
yeah.
totally okay with it. But it's one of those things. Hey, I seen it, and it wasn't on Facebook or something like that. You know what I mean? And it was a reputable news outlet that I seen it on, that it's affecting the crops, the wildlife. There was somewhere, this was stateside. This guy was growing, I believe it was soybeans maybe, and just had an inkling, and it was close to a wind farm, and went and got his crops tested, and they condemned the whole crop.
Oh,
No kidding.
Yeah, and it was due to fiberglass.
Hmm.
So
That makes sense. Yeah, like I said, it makes sense that they're made out of fiberglass. Like, and it's rotating. Like, they can't keep every strand.
well, you ever
Yeah.
seen fiberglass sit in the sun for a
Yeah.
couple of years?
Yeah.
It starts birthing fibers about a
yeah,
day.
right.
It's incredibly degrading when it's exposed to ultraviolet light.
Yeah.
So maybe, I don't know, the manufacturers may do something about that, but it doesn't sound like they've figured it out yet.
If they do, I'm sure it'll be with a petroleum-based product. I can get behind that, so.
Well, we can go down that rabbit trail for a
Yeah.
month. We're going to, right?
Oh, yeah,
So,
for sure.
but yeah, since you're wanting to hear the data dump of businesses,
Yeah.
the convenience stores are been an interesting business. It's really, it's dealing with the public is another level of work.
Okay.
For the employees, managers, and everything. It's something new for me. I've primarily always been to business industries, and that work serving the public in hospitality is a challenge. Probably the thing I'm most passionate about, and where I've already told many people that I plan to spend the last portion of my career, is in providing safe, clean water for people, for the world, really.
Okay.
And I discovered a technology about 8 years ago called atmospheric water generation. It's been around for 25 years. There's multiple people that claim to be the inventor of it. I have no idea who the real one is, but the technology is evolving over time. And I invested in a company that still, unfortunately, seems to be in a perpetual research mode, and chose to go around that investment because I got tired of waiting for them to turn a dollar, and became a distributor for one company, and started a small business here in Texas with my son and two of his business partners, and eventually purchased a big majority ownership in the company in manufacturing, and it's a company called Tsunami Products. And Tsunami makes now three sizes of machines that basically take the air, the humidity in the air into the machine, filters the air, cools the air on a coil, like using some various types of refrigeration technology. Condenses the moisture off the air, out of the air onto the coil, and then into a collection chamber, and then it's filtered and sanitized to make it perfect, safe, clean drinking.
Awesome.
So obviously the principal value in this machine and this technology is you can provide safe, clean drinking water anywhere that you have humidity in the air. Now, dry desert climates, unfortunately, are very challenging for this technology even today. There's some other emerging technologies that address desert type climates that still have quite a ways to go, but there are companies working on that. But if you have a climate that's reasonably warm, depending on our machine, that needs 50 to 60 degrees Fahrenheit. The newest machine we're coming out with can now work down into the 35 degree Fahrenheit, and a humidity of about 30% or greater to be reasonably efficient. It'll start producing safe drinking water. And so you don't need a water source. And so where are the applications? They're all over the place.
Yeah.
Where your water table has been compromised, or you have no water table, or in the Caribbean, we have quite a few distributors already in the Bahamas, Dominican Republic, Mexico, whereby their water tables are brackish. And so they've resorted to desalination or reverse osmosis, which reverse osmosis works, but these guys are having to do it twice because of the salinity of the water in the Bahamas. And then they're still faced with varying degrees of salinity that is unpredictable. So it's expensive. And so we have a number of distributors there that are looking to install our machines in restaurants, in hotels, in neighborhoods. One guy's already bottling and selling the water on his island. And that island has the cost of drinking water in the Bahamas is outrageous. It varies anywhere from $2 a gallon is the cheapest I've heard seen of to $6 per liter,
Holy smokes.
depending on where you are. And so anyway, I could ramble on about this until next week, but it's a super exciting technology. And the more time we spend on it, the more people come to us saying, we need what you do.
Right. Yeah, I can tell that, this will be great because I know that a lot of people, whenever I talk about it, it's not heard of yet.
No.
Yeah, no one knows
very
about it
few know
yet.
about it.
And so, and to kind of summarize it is you take a box in layman's terms and you refrigerate it and you take the water out of the humidity out of the air and it filters it and you get drinking water out of it. So all you need is a power source and some humidity.
Power source.
You don't,
The only
yeah.
thing we don't, I do have a trailer mounted version that comes with its own power source.
Yeah.
As you know, you
Yeah.
worked on those generators for me.
Yeah.
And diesel supply. And we have a design now for solar. We can run our 200 gallon per day machine off a solar grid. And really, you can run any size machine off the solar grid if you make the grid big enough.
Right.
So people are always asking us, well, you can run it off power, you can run it off diesel generator. Can you run it off solar? I said, well, if it produces electricity, then yes, we can do that. Exactly. So power source and some reasonably humid air. We've had some folks try to use it in the mountains where it's terribly low humidity, and we tell them up front it is low humidity, and they want to try it anyway. And then when it doesn't work, they say your machine's not producing water. We're like,
Can't produce what ain't there.
we told you it was going to be a difficult application.
Sure.
They only heard what they wanted to hear because they had a desperate situation. So we haven't resolved everybody's problems.
Okay.
But we're working in that direction with this newer technology that allows us to go from really realistically 60 degrees Fahrenheit down into the mid 30s. That's a big jump to help us.
Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's just to dumb it down. I mean, we're in West Texas, right? Look at the condensations our air conditioners
Right.
produce
So-
during the summer months. I
And,
mean, it's
we're based here in Midland because this is where we live.
Sure.
And so we do test machines here and they do work.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Not every day. And so it's really working off the dew point, which is just a mathematical calculation between temperature and humidity. And so if the dew point is right, it's going to make water. And so we have some electronics that can be set up in the machine that when it's measuring a certain temperature and humidity, it turns on. So it's a good time to make water. Or simpler would be just put it on a timer and have it in the reasonably warm months, just operate at night, which is the best time.
Yeah.
It's the most humid time, of course. So yeah, it does work here. The cost of power becomes the final deciding factor. Okay, how much power am I burning to produce the water I need? And then you decide, well, do I have an access to decent water? Like even here in Midland, we have atrocious city water. But if you run it through an RO, it's drinkable. And so really Midland on average is not a great application, but we're working on some municipal size systems, right? Produce 50,000 gallons per day for cities in Mexico whose entire water table is completely destroyed by either sewage or chemical contamination or
Right.
both. In this one city, I won't name them on air here, but they've asked us to come up with a way to provide water for a city of 100,000 people.
Holy smokes.
And we're working on that.
That's
It'll-
just a scaled operation, right?
It's
I mean,
huge. It's
basically-
big scaled operation. Exactly. And so what we're proposing is here's a 1,600 gallon a day machine. Install this wherever you need it. Run it for a couple of months. If you like what you've seen,
Mhm.
then we'll talk about a big contract.
Well, that allows you to gather some data
Yeah.
within the area too, and then you would think again, my KISS method.
Oh yeah.
You scale accordingly the size of that machine. You would think that would be just a common sense approach how to get there.
It is, and it's very warm, very tropical. It's really a swampy area, so the machines will work incredibly well year round. But yeah, our proposal is to build a 50,000 gallon a day water station to supply one part of the town. And then as they embrace the technology, just decentralize it,
Mhm.
build it
Right.
around the town so that each neighborhood or business district, whatever it is, can just draw from different sources. So
Oh, that would be fun. That would be
yeah,
that would be a
that'd
project.
be incredible.
Yeah.
Well, and when we get this first one built, it becomes obviously a working model to advertise to the world. Hey, if you can, if you have a water situation where this city is trucking water from another city
Yeah.
every day. I have no idea how many trucks, but it must be an outrageous sum of trucks to
Yeah, I
supply.
mean, if their consumption is approximately 50,000
50,000
gallons, you're moving what 120 barrels
Per truck,
per
yeah, dude,
truck.
yeah,
You
it's a
do some
lot.
quick math and get there pretty quick.
Well, it's
That's a
more than
lot.
that because 50,000, I have 100,000 people.
Oh
50,000
yeah, 50,000 gallons ain't getting it.
They didn't even
Yeah.
scratching the surface.
Yeah, I got my water bill in Odessa last month. They said I used 20,000 gallons, so that's a whole nother story.
I mean, what I've proposed, like we have residential developers in the Bahamas, the Dominican Republic, and Hawaii that are all looking at our machines. And I'm telling those designers, I say, look, build 2 plumbing systems. Whatever your low grade water is, use that for your toilets, use that for your showers, use that for your lawn, and then run another plumbing system into the house for your drinking water, your dishwasher, your ice maker,
Mhm.
and run that to our machines. That'll
It cuts down on consumption.
exactly.
So
So anyway, tsunamiproducts.com. Go have a look.
Okay.
awesome.
There's my plug.
There's
There
your
you
plug.
go. No,
There's
that's
your plug.
Yeah, that's some very interesting technology, and it sounds like it's a very common sense approach. You take humidity and convert it to drinking water
It
via.
is.
I mean, it's a very
Well, and
common sense
in
approach.
coastal areas where desal has been long since established, like for example, the Persian Gulf. You go up and down the United Arab Emirates, they're desal, and in Saudi Arabia, they've been doing desal there for 50 years in some places. Saudi, and now UAE is the same way. The Persian Gulf is quickly becoming uninhabitable for marine life
Really?
because they're pulling all the salt water out and they're taking the fresh water out and they're dumping the high salinity water back in. Then the feedstock of fresh water is the 2 rivers, Euphrates and the Tigris, coming out of Iraq, and rainwater. Well, they've dammed up both of those rivers for years in Iraq, and they're using all that water. So the only freshwater input they're getting is whatever overflows from those 2 rivers that's left, and rain. And it doesn't rain over there very much. And so that sea is becoming toxic for marine life.
Dead
that's
Sea,
what
Dead Sea 2.0.
Yeah. Yeah, much bigger Dead Sea.
Right.
And so that's the problem with desal. And some cities are starting to ban it unless they take the effluent way offshore, far away from the coast.
Mhm.
And the city of Corpus Christi is facing this conflict right now.
Really?
Yeah,
Corpus.
the city recently agreed to sell 50 million gallons a day to Exxon Chemical to build a brand new chemical plant on the east side of Corpus Christi Bay. Well, they've soon realized after that deal was cut, it looked so sweet on the front end, but now they don't have enough water for the city. And so now they've decided to build a desal plant right at the mouth of Corpus Christi Bay, where it goes into the Gulf I think it's harbor. I can't remember the name of the island, but right there in the mouth. Well, that's not great, but the worst part of it is that they want to dump their effluent right there in Corpus Christi Bay, which is a low volume, shallow bay full of all kinds of fragile marine life that the only freshwater feedstock it gets is from the Nueces River and rainwater. Well, the biologists have already concluded that it's going to potentially destroy all marine life in Corpus Christi Bay, which would obviously destroy
That's
the
a whole other
fishing
industry there.
and tourism industry and oysters and shrimp and all those things. And so what is the solution there? I've been working on this municipal concept in conjunction with a couple of local business leaders there in Corpus as well, trying to develop it, but it's running into a lot of headwinds because it's unknown technology, and desal is well known, of course, and there's a lot of money behind desal because it has a lot of momentum. And so there's a big conflict going on in that city between business push developers who are all focused upon business, and environmentalists, and those that love the bay and the ocean and the sea life, fighting that it's a terrible struggle. You can see it all over the news.
I would, and I'll get crucified for this one, but again, I'm up for it. I would like to see where Exxon stands on that. You know, they cut a deal, I'm sure, unknowing to some extent.
Probably,
You
possibly,
know,
yeah,
possibly, right? I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt.
yeah.
I wonder where they stand on potentially helping fund an issue a fair deal that they cut, fair and square. Two parties agreed. That's a fair deal. I just wonder where Exxon stands on the effect
That's a great question. I don't know
on the
that answer.
wildlife side of it, right? I
Yeah.
just wonder if there would be something there that you said you were working with some local leaders there in the Corpus area to reach out to Exxon and say, hey, you know, we made a deal. Nobody saw this coming. Here we are. Where does Exxon stand? I just think that would be just a question. Me personally, I'd like to hear because everybody knows Exxon. They're one of the forefront leaders in
Oh, yeah.
and renewables and doing what's right for the environment, which I absolutely applaud them for.
Right.
But I just wonder where their stance is on, hey, mutual parties agree, and now we have a mutual issue.
Right.
I just
It's a good question. One of the issues, if they would take that effluent offshore, 10 miles, maybe 5 miles,
Yeah.
get it away from the coast, it would be far less damaging. We're talking huge volumes, 50 million gallons to 100 million gallons a day of high salinity water being dumped back into the ocean. And they're pulling that much out. I have no idea how much of an impact that's going to be, pulling that much water
Yeah, right.
in that area close to the plant. But that's a great idea, to reach out to Exxon and see if, hey, would you subsidize a pilot?
And I guess that's where I was going with it, because like I said, those guys, they've got plenty of money. They've done extremely well for themselves over
Give me another thing I need to do all day. It's just,
yeah, that's it.
plate number 13.
Like I said, there may be something to it, maybe not, but I would love to just see where they stand.
Yeah, no,
Like I said.
that's a great idea.
So if it pays you anything, I'll send you that. There.
If you know anybody at Exxon,
Man, the guys I know would know absolutely nothing about that or who to talk to
Yeah.
for sure. So, yeah, well, like I said again, I know that Exxon they do practice what they preach on the environment.
Oh, they do.
And they do. So that definitely wasn't a jab, just a question.
it's a valid question.
Love to hear their stance on it. Maybe that's something that, just an idea that maybe you or somebody that hears the show or watches or listens to the show or whatever, may know that person. Say, I heard this, just there's a question,
Right.
Only the worst thing they can do is decline the comment.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So, oil and gas, selling pipe,
Selling pipe.
water generator,
Yeah.
and wood pellets,
Yeah. Convenience stores.
and convenience stores.
hey, well-rounded.
Well-rounded business acumen there.
I like it.
That's fun.
What's your favorite one?
Well, I would make a lot of partners upset that are not part of the favorite one if I were to say that. But I already said essentially where I plan to spend most of the rest of my time
Yeah.
that the Lord gives me on earth and working. I'm 63 now. I don't believe in retirement because I haven't been able to find that word in scripture anywhere.
Yeah.
It's not there as far as I can
It's
tell.
not there.
And so I plan to work. If it's not for a profit, it's going to be for a cause. I've been serving in my local church for ever since we arrived there in 1989 in some capacity. I've been on the board for the last 20 years. President's Church here in Midland used to be called Cornerstone. That's where I met you.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And I love serving there.
Is that on 191?
No.
No, we're on Midland Drive. right
Oh,
there,
okay,
right
okay,
across from
okay.
junior high.
That'll work.
And so I will serve there, but I believe in staying active, being productive, contributing to something, and Tsunami is probably where I'll spend the bulk of my time. I'm definitely going to always support my partners at Five Stones and LATAM, the Brazilian company. Everybody else is pretty much on autopilot. They really don't need much from me. But my son and his two business partners and our other partners up in Spokane, Washington, where our manufacturing plant is, are are wonderful young guys, and I love supporting them, advising them, guiding them, pouring into their lives to see the next generation like you
Yeah.
take over and do it well.
Yeah.
And so I can see myself growing old, being really happy, just kind of rolling in there and having coffee with the boys and listening to what's going on for the day and how I can salt their ideas a
Good.
little here and there.
But
So yeah, if I had to say where I think I'll spend
The rest of your time.
this time, I hope it's there. But the Lord only knows, you know. We pick our steps, but He plans our path.
that's what I always say. If you want to hear God laugh, tell him your plans.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Don't you think so? Right. Well, let me show you something new right
Yeah.
about now.
Yeah, is that right? Watch me change your heart.
But you know,
Yeah, like that fast.
since we're talking about the Lord, I want to honor Him. I came to know Him when I was 24, and it's been an amazing blessing. And I've never seen Him leave me nor forsake me, even in my darkest moments, which I've had my share. And
I
His
can testify to
faithfulness
that.
and His peace that passes all understanding has guarded my heart and my wife's heart. And I can just tell anybody that's listening that if you're struggling and in a dark place, you don't know where to turn, God is sitting right there, right beside you, just waiting for you to call out to Him. He loves you. You're His son or daughter, and He wants to have a relationship with you. He desires it more so than your natural parents could ever imagine. So there's my plug for the Lord.
Yeah, there it is. I love it. No, we love it. Dakota
Man,
feels. I know
that's-
we're all in the same boat here.
That's the
and,
most important plug one could have, in my
Right.
opinion. So,
absolutely.
like I said, I think it's absolutely great, man. I love what we do. I love the industry we're in. I'm so thankful that the good Lord put it in my heart to end up in the Permian Basin, because I get to witness to people out here, and man, I've got a story that'll blow your mind. Like I said, I was born and raised in a Baptist church, still missionary Baptist, but man, when I tell you I strayed at one point in my life, I mean, just man, it's been bad. Got back on track.
Yeah.
Thank God, got back on track. And but like I said, with me coming out here, I wasn't sure. I knew my purpose. I thought I knew my purpose. I thought my purpose was to get out here and just make a living and bring my talents to the Permian. And the more time I've spent out here, I literally see it happen before my eyes. It's morphing into, yeah, Dakota, we're going to do that. That's what I put you here to do. But the real work is exposing the lost to Him.
Amen.
You know,
That's right.
And the older I've gotten, again, it goes back with age. I think with age,
Yeah.
we start slowing down and prioritizing what's really important. And for me, it's the talents I've been blessed to have in the oil and gas business. I always thought that was it, but it was the vessel. It was the talents that I was given to meet people I would never meet and expose people to the Word
Mhm.
that I would have never had the opportunity to meet if I didn't have this skill set. You
No,
know,
I agree.
so-
I agree. Well, you know, the workplace is such a vast harvesting mission field that is just ripe for the picking.
Mm.
If there's folks that are willing to go out and go one-on-one with somebody and talk to them about Jesus and what He's done for you, and just you're not trying to drag them into church because that's what they're afraid of, the unknown. But you just bring the church to them, and man, the Lord will honor that and He'll operate in that. So
That's exactly right.
don't stop doing
Yeah,
that. That's
Yeah,
fantastic.
people, it's crazy how people fear the church. Man, I just tell everybody, I sum up, a church is a hospital for the sick.
Yeah.
It is.
It is.
Spiritually sick
Yeah,
people.
you know
Yeah.
what I mean? It's a hospital for the sick, and man, it's been such a blessing to me to be that guy that was, that alpha male mentality, that I could do this, I can do this. You'll get to a point where you can't.
Yeah.
And
No.
and man, the weight of the world was literally collapsing me as an individual. I was worshiping at the altar of I can do this. But until I hit my knees and just prayed and cried, I was like, Lord, I can't do this.
No.
I can't do this anymore. And when I tell you a peace come over me
Yeah, like that. Yeah.
like that, and the weight of the world was lifted off of me, man, it turned me around. And like I said, I didn't do the 180. I wasn't that guy. I wasn't that extreme in my turnaround, but I made
Yeah. Yeah.
that just enough a degree to
Where-
put me on a path
Path.
to bring me back to where I needed to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like I said, I just wanted to add that, for whatever reason. And again, it's just a piece of my story that relates, somewhat to your faith and whatnot. And I'm just glad to be able to share that with you.
So
Yeah,
I
sure.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
So-
beautiful.
And I love it too. I know we grew up in it, and then I would even say that I lost my way for a little bit, and just didn't really expose myself or my children to it for a number of years, and then now I do it. Now it's full go, and I should have never left, and you don't know. It was one of those things where I wasn't listening. I wasn't listening to advice anymore, and I thought I would say the same kind of principle that Dakota says. You think that you know better, and you don't know better, and
Well, we just put, we put God in a box.
Yeah.
And it's like our break in case of emergency.
yeah, break, yeah.
And I think we're guilty of that. I think it goes back to our sinful nature, right? Things are good. We don't need God. Put God over here. Put him up on the shelf. And then
And then
then we're like, man, I'm doing so good. God's not a part of my life, and life is tracking.
Now that's because
Then it doesn't track, and we fight that.
Yeah, we
God,
fight that.
God is the God of the valley. He's the valley experiences in our life is where we cry out to him. And that's where he meets us in our place of need. And that's where he shows his power in our lives and does his best work, is when we're desperate. Because then we're listening,
Then we're listening.
right? You're willing to listen when you don't have any other choices, right?
That's exactly
And,
right.
that's where God usually finds us.
Yep.
That's where he found me. And that's another story, but he found me in a deep, dark valley.
Sure.
Brought me out of it, praise God. But
I think you found me
being
in that
fathers-
ditch in the valley.
Yeah.
It was bad.
I want to say to you, Stefan, that you're a dad now.
Yeah.
And the thing that your children will appreciate about God the Father is what they understand what a father is. And you're that model.
Yeah.
They'll never understand more about a father's love as a child than they do about you. And so when they understand that their daddy loves them, then it's a lot easier for them to understand a loving heavenly Father. And so I challenge dads anywhere. Think about that. And you're setting you're setting the pace. You're the example of what your kid thinks of when they hear the word father.
Yeah, right. Yeah. We'll
Big
do it.
responsibility,
Big responsibility. Yeah.
but a great one.
That's a good one. Yeah, being a dad's awesome. I know Dakota's a dad. We're all dads. That's the favorite,
Yeah.
is the dad.
Absolutely. It's one of those things for me that, people as you age, people like, you get that question from the younger generation, what do you want your legacy to be?
Yeah.
I just want to be known as a good
That's
dad,
a good dad. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that's just kind of
That's
that's
it.
that at this point in my life, that's what I'm shooting for.
Mhm.
I just want my kids to,
Yeah.
I'm not a good dad. To me, that's the biggest compliment, worldly compliment, right? Obviously, being that model Christian is priority, but I feel like if you're that guy, being a model dad is part of that, right?
Yep.
And being that, man, I said a good dad. And that's kind of where I'm at, at this point in my life.
That's good.
So,
Okay. Well, with that, I'm gonna wrap us up here. We talked business, God, and dad.
Yeah.
It was good having you,
Great
Mr. Peters.
Loved being here.
Yeah, thanks for
spending time with you.
Yeah. Thanks for coming again, Dakota. We're
Yeah,
we're
man.
keep doing it.
I'm a phone call away, brother. I'm just glad to be here.
We're gonna
So,
keep
Good
doing
to
it.
meet you.
yes, sir. You as well. And again, thank you for sharing your story with us. And I appreciate the work you're doing. It sounds like to me, with your water thing that, your tsunami technology, I guess, for lack of a better term. I feel like you're doing the Lord's work there,
Yeah, there's an opportunity in the future. We've donated one machine to a missions effort in Kenya, but a long-term corporate goal is to tithe machines.
Sure.
As we have income, we'll start blessing people that need these machines and can't afford to buy them.
Right.
Out of our profits. That's
I understand.
that's going to be a lot of fun too.
There you go. I picked that up.
I
So,
figured
I picked that up. I felt like that's where that's headed. So
Yeah.
again, thank you for being here. Stefan, again, man, brother, always have fun
Yeah.
being on your show.
Yeah.
Like I said, just keep doing what you're doing, man.
Yeah.
So good luck to you.
All right. Y'all take care.
Thanks.
Thank you, guys.